to what extent was the Queen complicit in hiding the truth and trying to cover this up?
Well, she was. I mean, I've got plenty of testimony from people who went and complained to the Queen and were sent away.
I think it's clear that Andrew lied to everybody. He was using his royal connections to get in with all kinds of dictators all over the world, but also to be there with Epstein, and that's very concerning.
Hello and welcome to the Fourcast. If you thought the Epstein files would damage Donald Trump, it is here in Britain where they have caused the most devastation. The most damning material yet about the former Prince Andrew include photographs that seem to show him on all fours over a woman on the floor, as well as humiliating emails from his ex-wife Sarah Ferguson to Epstein, in which she appears to suggest he marries her. It all raises new questions about the conduct of certain royals, the monarchy and the palace's handling of this over many years, and what this new low means for the whole institution. Andrew has said nothing new, but consistently denies any wrongdoing, despite his financial settlement with Virginia Giuffre. I'm joined by biographer Andrew Lownie, whose work has explored the private world of the Windsors, and historian Kate Williams, who has charted the monarchy's turbulent existence across generations. Thank you both very much indeed. Andrew, I mean, more and more comes out that takes this to new pathetic lows, really. And you had warned that it was only going to get worse all along.
Yes, and I think it's going to get even worse. I mean, there's still 3 million pages that haven't been released, and I think there's still many more people who can come forward and talk. So I think he's not out of the woods.
Are you guessing that it could get worse, or have you heard more than we've already?
Well, I've certainly got a lot of material from my own sources, which I'm going to be putting in my paperback of my book. $5 million bribes, the whole national security question, which people haven't really looked at. The fact is that both the Russians and Chinese saw the vulnerabilities of basically cozying up to greedy royals as the way in. There's, I think, quite a lot still I've found to come out quite separately from whatever there is in the DOJ files.
He, of course, has always denied any wrongdoing. He hasn't said anything new. But Kate, how much damage is this doing to the monarchy? I mean, if the king thought he was stemming the flow of the blood flow, if you like, by cutting Andrew off, it's not really worked, has it?
It is very damaging to the monarchy. I mean, we had everything that happened last year at the end of October, just about when Mrs. Giuffre's memoir was going to come out, that Andrew, he lost the title of Duke of York, he stepped back from it, he lost the title of Prince, he's now about to move into this different residence in Sandringham that both Andrew Lownie and I think he's not going to last very long in. But this doesn't seem to be enough, because the revelations keep on coming. And this latest photograph of Andrew on all fours, it seems like Andrew on all fours, over this, very young woman. It's really very distressing to look at. We think of all these victims, all these survivors, and what they've been through. And the fact is that they've not just been through this at the hands of Epstein, the hands of wealthy men all over the world, it seems, but also a British royal, and also Prince Andrew, and no longer called Prince, of course. And this, what's it mean for the monarchy? It is damaging to the monarchy. We know that certainly there was we know that Virginia Giuffre said she wasn't allowed to say anything. There was an NDA given to her throughout the year of the Queen's Jubilee in 2022. She said she wasn't permitted to speak out during that was the terms of the NDA. They know it's damaging. It is damaging. And I think that no matter how much Charles and also William distanced themselves from Andrew, the fact is this was a senior member of the royal family, and he was using, as Andrew Lownie has shown in his book, he was using his royal connections to get in with all kinds of dictators all over the world, but also to be there with Epstein, and that's very concerning.
I mean, I do want to come to the whole question of sort of using royal privilege and palaces and what he had to offer. But doesn't it also just make us reappraise the way the Queen, the King, and others in the royal household dealt with this all along? As you say, there was a deal with Virginia Giuffre. There was an NDA. And it makes us wonder, to what extent were they just trying to protect themselves and the institution, and to what extent were they actually trying to do something about the truth and the behaviour?
Well, I think it's clear that Andrew lied to everybody. I mean, let's just think of those statements he put out saying he was he said, I'm at a loss to understand Mr. Epstein's lifestyle.
Yes.
I mean, lifestyle? It's
But
not a lifestyle.
can you just blame Andrew, is my point?
No, if I could interrupt there, perhaps. I don't think you can. I mean, the royal family have known about this for years and had the opportunity to deal with it years ago. So this is an accident that's been waiting to happen, and I think they need to be held responsible. I think also the Met now need to look at their case again. It's very clear that women were trafficked to Andrew, and they need to reopen their investigation. But I do think there are big questions for the palace. They haven't handled this at all well.
Kate?
I think this is true. I think that the palace were obviously, I mean, I feel that Andrew did lie to them, but and constantly thought he was innocent. I mean, let's just think about when it was the Duchess of Kent's funeral last year. He was cozying up to William. He was trying to talk to William, and William was trying to get away from him. Andrew simply, I think we can say this, didn't believe he's guilty of anything. He just simply thought he was just absolutely innocent. And some members of the royal family clearly bought that, and yet it was a total lie. And we have the whole case of paying Miss Giuffre for her, the settlement we believe is $12 million simply, and also the fact that Andrew kept saying he was going to speak to authorities, didn't he? He said over and over again he's going to speak to authorities, and then the American authorities actually came out and said no, he's just giving us the runaround. And this is the question I think that we now have: is Andrew going to speak to authorities?
I think my question it kind of goes to that place where nobody dares go, which is, to what extent was the Queen complicit in hiding the truth and trying to cover this up?
Well, she was. I mean, I've got plenty of testimony from people who went and complained to the Queen and were sent away.
The significance of that is really deep, isn't it? Because so far this has been a story about one bad apple in the royal family and how damaging it is to all the other honourable members. Most honourable, of course, the Queen, the late Queen. But it forces us to think about this differently.
I was vilified when I said that back in August. No one believed me. Charles was also in a position of power in the last few years of the Queen's reign when he could have handled this. But I agree. It does call. This isn't a moment for the monarchy to make itself fit for purpose, to actually modernise and adapt to a modern society, or it can continue to bury its head in the sands and actually just lead to its own decline.
Are you sure it can? It's not too late.
I think there are opportunities there. If we have more parliamentary scrutiny, I think if William actually and the younger generation, who I think realise the reputational damage that's been done, I think they need to look at a whole series of things. I mean, we've got a number of royal palaces that are empty. We've got art treasures and not seen. There needs to be a lot of sort of slightly thinking outside the box here to win back the trust and respect of the public, because at the moment that contract has been broken.
Kate, do you think it's possible?
I think it's possible, but I think, yes, there has to be transparency, and there has to be a question of whether or not Andrew is going to testify. There has been this story just recently that a woman has said that she was sent to Buckingham Palace. Now that, I think, is particularly serious, the suggestion that Andrew had a woman, and that maybe there were others, sent to him in Buckingham Palace, because obviously they would have been waved through by security. It would have been aware they were there. And first of all, Miss Giuffre wanted the Met Police to investigate the fact that she'd been trafficked to Andrew in London. And just as Andrew was saying there about the Met Police, there was, first of all, Miss Giuffre wanted the Met Police to investigate the fact that she'd been trafficked to Andrew in London. That investigation didn't happen. The suggestion that Andrew had asked his royal protection officer to go and find Miss Giuffre's social security number and, so that he can try and dig up dirt on her. These are really serious uses of royal privileges. And if there's a suggestion that other royal residences were used for Andrew to and Epstein obviously visited Andrew at various royal residences, if there were women sent there as well, I mean, that's very serious. For me, as a woman looking at some of these pictures, I mean, the women, our girls are so young. They're so young. And I think of Miss Giuffre saying that Andrew Epstein always wanted women to be thin. He always kept them on very hardcore diets. These women seem so young, so vulnerable. I mean, very, very young. And the fact was that if they were being trafficked by Epstein, and if there are women being trafficked to royal palaces, that is, I mean, that's a very, very distressing allegation.
Yes, I mean, Andrew Lownie, I mean, this is not the first time we've heard an allegation of women being brought to Andrew, in a royal building. And we haven't had an official denial or anything of this particular latest allegation. But as Kate points out, what it raises is this whole question of to what degree people working in the royal household facilitated or turned a blind eye or didn't think this was wrong and should be reported to the police.
Well, I think some people did try and report it. PPOs who tried to report it found themselves threatened with being put back on the beat in Brixton. We had members of staff making complaints. I mean, one of them told me the other day that Sarah Ferguson was still bringing her laundry into Windsor to be done, and she complained and was told by the head of household it should be allowed.
I mean, that's slightly lower order, isn't it?
It's lower order,
yeah.
But they've been entertaining also business figures with whom they were doing business until quite recently, and using royal palaces to basically promote their own business interests. We've seen in the revelations that various tours were being offered to various people as part of it. So they've kind of just treated all these royal palaces as their places to play.
As transactional.
Yeah.
Kate, I mean, is that an entirely new thing, or is that the way it's always worked? You know, that being royal means that you have these sorts of privileges and access to things that you can dangle in front of people you want on your side. And that it might not always be for nefarious purposes, but that's what you've got as a royal. And so it's not surprising that they were using it in this way. Because to some degree, they all use it for what they want, whether it's charitable work or anything else.
Yes, Krishnan, as you say, charitable work, this is what the royals as patrons, that's the benefit. That's one of the great benefits, is that there can be receptions at the palace and meetings at the palace. And we all knew that Andrew used to sort of exploit the palace in terms of pitch at the palace and his businesses. But I think the fact that women, not only is having Epstein over for tea and meeting up, but also the women might have been trafficked to Royal Lodge, that's where the woman said she was sent to, and other residences, I think is very serious. And yes, royals have always acted, in the 18th century with a sense of entitlement, but certainly I would say, the royal George IV, who was very entitled, monarch, would said that the women were consenting, and this is a very different matter. People say to me, oh, but there's no crime that was done to Miss Giuffre because she was over 16, and I say that that's not the point. The point is that she was trafficked, and that's not consenting. That's why she wants a police investigation into what happened between her and Andrew. And of course, Andrew said he never met her. The photo was photoshopped, all this sort of thing, and it was all lies. And the fact is that Andrew has used his privilege as all royals do, to forward their charity work, but he's used his privilege not for charity work, but for nefarious instances.
Are you at all surprised, Kate, that somebody like Epstein wanted this sort of access? I mean, I look at Epstein and I think, well, here's this billionaire and he flies around the world and he mixes with the most famous rich people in the world who are, genuine achievers and have done things and built business empires and all the rest of it. Why did he want to hang out with Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, or Prince Andrew as he was?
Well, there've been lots of allegations, haven't there, about where Epstein's money came from, and there've been various articles in the Sunday newspapers over the weekend about where the money came from, what he was using footage for. Probably can't say them too clearly here, but they are. But I think where Epstein's money came from is a very mysterious issue, where he accelerated into this very rich man. He clearly was seen as a fixer by the innocent people by the people we might say were innocent, who went to Epstein's Island, went to his house. They clearly thought he was a fixer who could introduce him to various people. But there are clearly people who I think he's getting photos of, he's getting information of. There have been various young women said they were sent to men for and sort of extracting information. I think Epstein was a man who used everyone he came in contact with. And that's not to say that any of these men are victims or survivors at all. He used people, and he used people because there are ways that he could use them as sort of ballast for his influence. But also, I think he was getting information on them, and I think he was using this information. And I think that, according to some of the Sunday newspapers, he was selling this information as well.
Andrew, I mean, do you have any sense of what it was that the then Prince Andrew really had to offer?
Yes,
like
access to the Queen. The Queen was the ultimate trophy. And so he was hoping that he would, it gave him credibility. He was just a boy from Brooklyn, and to be able to have pictures of him at Balmoral, pictures of him with Andrew, gave him a kudos with other people. But Kate is right, he traded information, he traded blackmail material. It was all part of a huge ecosystem. He traded information with intelligence services. Andrew was a very useful way into some of these useful contacts.
Let's talk briefly about Sarah Ferguson as well, because, I mean, the emails, if true, are truly humiliating.
Yes, well, I mean, I'm afraid that's what Sarah Ferguson is like. You can't believe a thing she says. I mean, she clearly kept, I fact discovered she was still in touch with staying at Epstein's properties years after she had supposedly cut off contact. But, in the way she hung on to Andrew because he was a sort of useful gravy train. Same with Epstein.
I mean, she accuses Epstein of using her as a way of getting to Andrew.
Yes, that's not true. I mean, the point is, I mean, that Epstein was paying a lot of Fergie's debts, and that's why she had to keep in with him.
But again, obviously we still don't know, in truth, whether these are definitely true. We haven't had a denial. The tone of it suggests she wanted some sort of relationship with Epstein. I mean, I presume she was joking, but she sort of says something about, well, you could marry me.
Yes, I mean, Sarah Ferguson, I mean, it's part of her style, but she certainly had relationships with many of her financial backers, so that doesn't surprise me what at all. I mean, you say there'd be no denials, but actually these disclosures back up what I had in my research, much of which wasn't used in the book because we wasn't believed at the time. I had a lot of material, for example, on Peter Mandelson. So, I mean, what to me is gratifying is that this disclosure has backed up the separate research I did with my sources.
So how much damage has she done? Or is she sort of separate because she's Sarah Ferguson, she's not really royal?
I think she's done less damage because she wasn't abusing her position as a taxpayer-funded civil servant, which is what he was doing. But yeah, clearly it's embarrassing. I mean, it's embarrassing the royal family embraced her again. Prince Philip got the measure of her and kept her out. I think the royal family kind of felt she was better inside the tent than out of it. But, she's now all sorts of rumours that she's trying to sell stories. She's trying to get some sort of stipend because she has no other way of earning a living at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, to what extent did they need the money?
Well, they lived very extravagantly. I mean, they had a staff of about 33 chauffeurs. So they went through this money very, very quickly. So I don't think they are poor now. I think he's made money.
What I mean is it that they were not given enough to live a royal life?
Oh, they were given plenty,
and therefore needed to go and raise more.
No, they were just very greedy. Greedy and needy is the way that people describe Sarah Ferguson. And one of the reasons that she wasn't given a huge sum at the divorce settlement because they thought she would go through it. The Queen bailed her out several times to the tune of many millions of pounds until she got fed up. So I don't think it's a shortage of money. They just lived so extravagantly that they were just going to burn through this money. But, they've got plenty of money. Nothing is now said about the £4 million house in Belgravia that she's just sold. There was money made when they sold a Swiss chalet a few years ago. He's on record as making 3.8, or he didn't get money in the end, but could have taken 3.85 million on a commission for a Greek water company. We're not dealing with small sums, and those sums are there. He earned money from a trust income. He's continued to do business in the last few years in the Middle East under the radar. So there's no problem with money there. They just don't like spending their own money.
Kate, I mean, you've mentioned some past historical precedent. I mean, to what extent is this always the way some royals have behaved, and that it's just incompatible with a modern world of modern media and social media and exposés?
Well, we do have a modern world and modern media, and we also have a sense in which the monarchy was really being refigured in terms of being a civil servant. That was very much the message of Her Majesty. Her first speech, her first major speech when she was 21 was, "I will dedicate my life to serving you," and her letter on 2022 at her Jubilee was signed off, "Your servant." So this idea that the monarchy are civil servants is very much one that the monarchy are moving forth with. But obviously what they've got that totally undermines that is the fact that this senior member of the royal family is doing everything opposite to serving the populace. He's doing the absolute opposite. He is using his, at the very best, you might say, he's using his contacts to make himself huge amounts of money with very dubious businessmen a lot of the time, but also exploiting it in these sort of terrible examples, being involved with Epstein, being involved in the exploitation of these poor, suffering young women who have been through horrific amounts of horror, really. And I think that's what we really have to think about, is that there's been more documents have been released, as Andrew says, more documents are going to be released. And is it going to lead to anything? Because these young women, these survivors, are being re-victimized, and a lot of them have said, we don't want to come out and speak because we've seen what happened to Virginia. We don't want to say more because you are destroyed. Is this going to lead anywhere, or is this just re-victimizing the victims? More information, because what we are seeing is at the moment, I'm not excusing Ghislaine Maxwell. It's terrible what she did. But at the moment, Epstein is dead, died in prison. And the only person in prison for all of this is a woman, is Ghislaine Maxwell. So what happens next?
Andrew, finally, I mean, can you actually see Andrew Mountbatten Windsor testifying? I mean, we've seen how hopeless he is in interview.
He's not going to go and testify to the Senate. I mean, he's spent the last 15 years avoiding saying anything. He never responds to anything. I think the only way that he's going to speak is if PC Plod comes and knocks on his front door. And that's what needs to happen. The Met need to now investigate him. And there's always been this trope in the royal family, and the Crown brought it out, between public duty and private pleasure. And as Kate says, this is on the unfortunate private pleasure bit.
And do you think the Met is genuinely free to investigate him? I mean, I think a lot of people kind of assume this is the kind of thing that just can't happen.
Well, I mean, had King Juan Carlos of Spain had to flee to Dubai because of corruption charges. We've had the Crown Princess of Norway's son, who's now up on charges of rape. So I think these things can happen, but I think it is important that we stress that the royals are not above the law, and that there does need to be a proper investigation, and he does need to answer these charges.
Kate, how do you see this possibly playing out? I mean, it's inconceivable, isn't it, that Andrew does actually testify, whether it's by video link or any other way, to US Congress?
It is very, very unlikely. I mean, let's remember, Krishnan, that he thought that interview with Emily Maitlis had gone marvellously in 2019. He was very pleased with it. He thought he defended himself very well. I mean, he simply is in a dream world about what constitutes responsibility, what constitutes criminal responsibility. And so his advisors have done everything to stop him from testifying. He said he would, he didn't. And of course, the pressure is going to be put on him. So I think unless he is compelled, he won't do it. But the question of him being compelled, I think, is one about public opinion, because people might increasingly say, yes, as Andrew was saying, are royals above the law? Because many of the rest of us would have been hauled in by the police for similar matters such as this. And that is the question. I think if public opinion starts to swell, I think the government will consider about whether or not the Metropolitan Police need to look again at questions about what happened to Ms. Giuffre in Ghislaine Maxwell's house, being asked a police detective what Andrew asked him to do. Because the simple fact is that Andrew, he denies that anything has gone wrong. He denies any wrongdoing whatsoever. But the evidence is mounting. And it seems to be that there's just going to be more evidence. When more and more of these documents come out, they're going to be much more damning. And the fact is that Epstein is dead. We can't question him. But what I do wonder is that perhaps more and more survivors might come through. I think they've been, my suspicion is they've been silenced by NDAs, but whether or not more and more survivors might come through, might speak out, and that when we have more survivors speaking out, I think that could be very, very damning. And the swell of public opinion will make it seem as if Andrew, he'll actually be forced to answer questions.
Right, but do you think it is possible that forcing Andrew to answer police questions about his behaviour would be the thing that saves the monarchy and enables it to get through this, or would it not just seal its fate and finish it for good?
I think, Krishnan, you've hit the nail on the head there. That is the question that the monarchy is going to be, and the advisors are going to be asking themselves in future years. They get in the sort of years to come. Charles's advisors, William's advisors are going to be saying, what is the best thing to sort of cover it up and hope it brushes under the carpet? Or is sunlight the best disinfectant? Is we supposed to put it all out there, put all the information out there? And really, I think what we might see under William is that some more of a cutting off with Andrew. But of course, the question is, I think many of us suspect that Andrew won't stay long in Norfolk. He might go to another country. So there's going to be more complicated questions if he's not in Britain anymore, and questioning is wanting to be put to him. But I think, as Andrew was saying, the monarchy so far have been hoping that they can kind of kick the can down the road and it'll go away. But, as I think in terms of the public, in terms of the newspapers, if the pressure is kept up, then eventually it really will seem to the monarchy as if Andrew must be made to answer these questions.
Kate Williams, Andrew Lownie, thank you both very much indeed for joining us. And that's the forecast for today. Bye-bye.